What your doctor never tells you during your post-45 checkup could cost you 10 years of healthy life. Not because your doctor is incompetent, not because they want to harm you, but because the current medical system is built to detect and treat diseases, not to optimize your vitality. There's a fundamental difference between not being sick and functioning at your full biological potential. And no one is going to spontaneously explain that difference during a 15-minute consultation. Today, I'm going to tell you what that silence is costing you. I'm going to reveal 4 critical pieces of information that your standard checkup almost always ignores, yet they explain much of the fatigue, physical decline, weight gain, and decreased vitality you experience after 45. And I'm going to give you a specific list of tests you can request from your doctor at your next appointment, because an informed person is a person who takes control of their own health. Stay tuned until the end of this video, because the 4th revelation is the one that most surprises men your age, and it's perhaps the most important for your long-term health. Let's start with a simple observation about the current medical system. When you go to your general practitioner for an annual checkup, here's what they usually examine: your blood pressure, heart rate, a blood test including blood glucose, total cholesterol, triglycerides, possibly CRP, C-reactive protein, possibly a complete blood count, CBC, and depending on your age, 1 or 2 specific screening tests. It's not useless, but it's woefully inadequate for a man over 50, a 45-year-old man who wants to truly understand what's happening in his body and optimize his vitality for the next 20 or 30 years. This standard blood test is designed to detect acute illnesses and immediate cardiovascular risks. It's not designed to measure your hormonal balance, your deep metabolic function, your systemic inflammatory state, or the health of your gut microbiota, all factors that massively influence your daily quality of life and your long-term aging. And here's something important to understand: that will change how you interpret your next test results. The reference ranges shown on your blood tests, the intervals within which your doctor considers your results normal, are statistical values based on the general population. They represent what's common, not what's optimal. A 55-year-old man with a testosterone level of 350 nanofarads per deciliter will be considered within the normal range because it's statistically common for his age group. But 350 nanofarads per deciliter is the level of a 90-year-old man. This is not optimal. It's not what his body needs to function properly, and yet his doctor will tell him, everything is fine. It's the systematic confusion between common and normal, between frequent and optimal, and it's the silence, this acceptance of insufficiency as normal, that costs millions of men their vitality, their strength, their mental clarity, years of healthy life. Now, here's the first medical revelation. Cholesterol is misinterpreted in your standard blood test. For decades, you've been told that total cholesterol and LDL cholesterol are markers of cardiovascular risk, and that you must lower your LDL at all costs, sometimes with statins. But research over the last 20 years has significantly nuanced this picture, and your doctor, caught up in the routine of official recommendations, may not always mention it. Here's what you need to know. Cholesterol is not your enemy. It's the precursor to all your steroid hormones, including testosterone. Without enough cholesterol, your body it cannot produce testosterone, DHEA, cortisol, or active vitamin D. Very low LDL levels, below 70 or 80 milligrams per deciliter, can contribute to insufficient hormone production in men over 45. There's no reason to panic if your LDL is low, but it's information you should have to properly interpret your results. What you should ask your doctor about is not just total LDL and HDL, but the TGHL ratio, the triglyceride to HDL cholesterol ratio. This ratio is one of the best predictors of insulin resistance and actual cardiovascular risk. A ratio below 1 is excellent. Between 1 and 2 is acceptable. Above 2, you likely have an insulin resistance issue that warrants attention, and you should request a measurement of LDL particles, small and dense versus large and light, because it's the small, dense particles that are truly problematic from a cardiovascular standpoint, not the total LDL. Here's the second medical revelation. Inflammation markers are systematically ignored or misinterpreted in standard screening. Chronic inflammation, or belograde inflammation, is now recognized as the common denominator of the vast majority of chronic diseases. Cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, cancer, neurodegenerative disease, and autoimmune disease. It is also one of the main factors in the decline of male vitality after age 45. It destroys collagen, suppresses testosterone, degrades insulin sensitivity, and accelerates cellular aging. Your standard screening may include C-reactive protein, CRP, but standard CRP is only sensitive to significant acute inflammation. To detect low-grade chronic inflammation, high-sensitivity CRP, HS-CRP, must be measured. An HS-CRP level below 0.5 milligrams per liter is excellent. Between 0.5 and 1 milligrams per liter is acceptable. Between 1 and 3 milligrams per liter is a warning sign that warrants attention. Above 3 milligrams per liter indicates a significant level of chronic inflammation associated with a high cardiovascular and metabolic risk. Other inflammatory markers you can request include homosystemic hormone, HbA1c, an amino acid whose elevated levels are associated with vascular inflammation, cardiovascular disease, and cognitive decline, is directly influenced by your levels of vitamins B6, B9, and B12. HbA1c level below 8 micromole per liter is optimal for a man your age. HbA1c, or glycated hemoglobin, reflects your average blood sugar over the past 3 months and is a much better marker of insulin resistance and metabolic risk than a simple blood sugar test. And HbA1c below 5.3% is optimal. Between 5.3 and 5.7, you are in the functional prediabetes zone, which warrants immediate nutritional adjustments. Here's the third medical revelation, and it's the most directly related to your daily vitality. Free testosterone is almost never measured in a standard blood test, and this is a major oversight. Here's why: in your bloodstream, your testosterone isn't circulating entirely in a free form available to your cells. The vast majority of your testosterone is bound to transport proteins, primarily SHBG. The SHBG is sex hormone binding globulin and albumin. Testosterone bound to SHBG is completely inactive. It cannot interact with your receptors. It cannot produce its biological effects. It is dormant, immobilized, biologically dead testosterone. Free testosterone and testosterone bound to albumin, collectively known as bioavailable testosterone, represent the fraction that truly matters for your vitality, strength, libido, and mood. And your doctor, in a standard blood test, only measures total testosterone. You could have total testosterone within the normal range and dramatically low free testosterone because your SHBG is very high and is sequestering most of your testosterone. What raises SHBG and therefore lowers your free testosterone? Age, first and foremost. SHBG naturally increases with age. Alcohol, insulin resistance, paradoxically, zinc deficiencies, and certain medications, including statins and proton pump inhibitors, also contribute. What do you need to ask you? A doctor will measure free testosterone, or failing that, SHBG, combined with total testosterone to calculate bioavailable testosterone. A free testosterone level below 50 picograms per milliliter in a man aged 45 to 65 is clinically insufficient to maintain optimal vitality, even if total testosterone appears normal. DHEA sulfate dehydroepiandrosterone is another hormonal marker systematically ignored by standard testing, yet it is an excellent indicator of your biological age and hormonal reserve. DHEA is the most abundant hormonal precursor in the human body and declines even faster than testosterone with age. Optimal DHEA levels for a man aged 45 to 55 are between 200 and 400 micrograms per deciliter. And here is the fourth medical revelation, the most surprising and least discussed in the context of men's health. Your gut microbiota directly influences your testosterone, systemic inflammation, mood, and aging. And your doctor doesn't, it's almost never discussed. Research on the microbiome over the last 10 years has produced groundbreaking discoveries. Your gut contains approximately 38 trillion microorganisms, bacteria, viruses, fungi, archaea, whose composition and diversity influence biological systems we wouldn't have imagined 20 years ago. Here are the specific links that directly concern your male vitality. First, certain gut bacteria produce enzymes that influence estrogen metabolism, and an unbalanced microbiota can increase intestinal estrogen reabsorption, throwing the testosterone-estrogen ratio out of balance. Second, microbiota diversity is inversely correlated with systemic inflammation. A poor, undiversified microbiota generates more bacterial endotoxins that cross the intestinal wall and fuel chronic inflammation, which in turn suppresses testosterone. Third, your microbiota produces a large portion of your gut serotonin and directly influences the production of GABA, the inhibitory neurotransmitter. This explains why an imbalanced gut microbiota can cause anxiety, sleep disturbances, and a depressive mood independent of any psychological factors. How can you assess your microbiota? Gut microbiome analysis tests are available in France and Europe. Some are reimbursed in specific circumstances, while others are directly accessible. These tests analyze the composition of your fecal microbiota through genetic sequencing and identify dysbiosis imbalances that can cause chronic symptoms. While not yet routinely prescribed by general practitioners, you can ask your doctor or access them directly through specialized laboratories. And while waiting for access to these tests, here are some of the most effective interventions to improve your microbiota and its impact on your male vitality. First, radically diversify your plant-based diet. Aim for 30 different varieties of vegetables per week, not just the same vegetables every day. Dietary diversity is the best predictor of microbial diversity. Second, consume fermented foods daily. Kefir, whole milk yogurt, raw milk cheese, cabbage, kimchi, miso. These foods provide live bacteria that boost microbiota diversity. Third, drastically reduce ultra-processed foods, food emulsifiers and artificial sweeteners. These compounds are documented as microbiota disruptors, reducing diversity and increasing intestinal permeability. And fourth, consume prebiotics, fermentable fibers that feed your beneficial bacteria. The best sources are raw garlic, onions, leeks, chicory, Jerusalem artichokes, slightly green bananas, and whole oats. Now, before I give you the list of tests to request from your doctor, I want to say something important. The goal of everything I'm explaining to you today is not to make you distrust medicine. The goal isn't to turn you into difficult patients or anti-medication advocates. The objective is we give you the tools to become an active and informed partner in managing your health. An informed man who knows what he's looking for, who knows what questions to ask, who understands his results, and who can have a quality conversation with his doctor about what truly matters for his long-term vitality. Your doctor is your ally. Give him the information he needs to help you effectively and demand the information you need to truly understand your biology. Here is the complete list of tests you can request at your next health checkup. For the complete male hormonal panel, total testosterone, calculated free testosterone, SHBG, LH, and FSH, DHEA, sulfate, estradiol, male estrogens, prolactin, and TSH with free T3 and free T4 to to assess thyroid function, as dysfunction is often associated with lower testosterone. For the complete metabolic panel, blood glucose, insulin, HbA1c, complete lipid profile with TG/HDL ratio, AST, ALT, GGT for liver function, and creatinine with GFR for kidney function. For the inflammatory markers, ultrasensitive CRP, homocysteine, and if possible, ferritin, an often overlooked marker of chronic inflammation. For the micronutritional assessment, vitamin D25OH, erythrocyte or plasma zinc, adiosite magnesium, vitamins B12 and B9, and iron with ferritin and transferrin saturation. Yeah. This isn't a complete assessment you'll get in a single consultation. Some of these tests require a doctor's prescription. Others can be done directly in private laboratories. But having this information means having a precise map of your biological terrain. And with this map, you can target your interventions with a precision that generic advice doesn't allow. If this video has opened your eyes to what your health assessment isn't telling you, subscribe to this channel. Every week I share content on male vitality after 45. Built on solid scientific foundations, explained clearly without unnecessary jargon and without a commercial agenda. Share this video with the men in your life who deserve access to this information. Please leave me a comment with this question. Does your doctor already measure your free testosterone during your annual checkup? I'm curious to know how many of you have already had access to this information. I read every comment. Take care of yourselves. Your health is too important to be managed by default.